Hey everyone, Trent here. Today I'm going to be talking about the Child's Play remake. I was lucky enough to attend a preview screening, and I got to say I was very nervous going into that screening, but I walked out with a huge smile on my face. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie for the most part. It was a lot of fun. There were some brutal deaths, even though they weren't as brutal as I expected or wanted, or as many as I wanted. I actually enjoyed this movie, and that is in no small part to Mark Hamill as Chucky, but I'll talk about him later. This movie, it does have a lot of updates and changes to Chucky's origin. No longer is he the serial killer Charles Lee Ray who transfers his spirit via voodoo magic into a good guy's doll. Chucky is now a buddy doll who is able to use Wi-Fi to connect to various systems of the Kazlan Corporation. So the casting for this was really good. I was actually really pleased with the performances, particularly Aubrey Plaza as Karen, who is Andy's mum, who's the lead character. Andy. So a nice little nod to Toy Story with Andy's toy going, psycho schizo killer crazy. But Aubrey Plaza, she has come a long way from Parks and Rec, and she's always going to be known as April on Parks and Rec. So it's good to see her showing her versatility and acting range. She has undertaken some more serious roles in recent years. I want to see a lot more of that because she actually has a lot of talent and a lot of ability. She shows the young single mother looking after her son who struggles to integrate into society without the help of the buddy doll. And she's struggling to make ends meet. So that tired and same old typical story, she actually makes it really relatable and presentable on screen. So she did a great job. Gabriel Bateman as Andy, really good for a child actor. He showed a lot of range, a lot of emotions, and I actually really liked him as the lead. He showed a lot of strength when he was, trying to overcome a lot of the challenges that were set up for him. And yeah, I actually really enjoyed the children in this movie. They were really good. It gave me some Stranger Things vibes and It vibes as well. Naturally, these are the producers of It who produced this movie. So there was that kind of strength in numbers. The children are the focus and all that kind of vibe going through. So really enjoyed that. But what people will want to know is, how did Mark Hamill do as Chucky? He did great. He nailed it. Could not complain about Hamill at all. He has this creepiness that he kind of does a variation of his Joker voice, and it's just super creepy. Can I just say, this is not a toy any sane person would want to bring home to their family. It is one of the most hideous and ugly toys on the market. Why would you want to bring it home and then to have a voice go, "I'm here, Andy. I want to be your friend. You're my best friend." Sounding just like that. No! I'd throw it in the bin straight away. But I digress. Hamill nailed it. His voice, his inflections, he was able to manipulate various elements of his voice to give this creepiness and this unthreatening friendliness at times. And he nailed that performance great. I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy his take on Chucky. And he does get that kind of, as the movie progresses, it gets more sinister as he goes on.
Yep, here's your problem. Someone set this thing to evil.
We get this updated contemporary take on Chucky. He's not a serial killer who initially wants to kill people. And this is where a lot of the themes of the movie come into play. Without going into spoilers, the first theme, which basically occurs within the first minute of the film, makes me think of the Joker in The Killing Joke. Mark Hamill voiced him too, as all it takes is one bad day. And that basically sets up every event that happens in the rest of the movie. So take with that what you will, without going into spoilers. One bad day leads to everything else. And I enjoyed that as this setup for the movie. It's particularly in modern society, it makes a lot of sense. The second theme is technology consumes us all. We are reliant on it. We've integrated it into all of our daily lives. We can't live without it. And that's the big theme of the movie. The overarching theme is that, it's always there. So we get a lot of Terminator references, RoboCop references, etc., etc. This was overplayed a little bit too much. It did get on the nose a bit and bleedingly obvious, but it did make for some interesting moments as well, particularly in Chucky's creepiness. And it goes to show that there's also a nature-nurture kind of element as well. A lot of the decisions people make in this, they bring anything that happens to them upon themselves. And that's where the nature-nurture argument comes in. Chucky sees and takes in a lot of these kind of vocal commands and things, and he kind of makes his own sentient decision based on that. So a lot of the characters, they set themselves up for failure, and it's the human element that kind of ensures that, you know, they're not going to survive the movie. The doll itself is where a lot of people, I think, are going to be divided. I am not too much of a fan of the new design. It does have the creep factor, but it has the creep factor without it even being like pulling a scary face. And as I said, it's not a doll you'd want to bring home. It's one of those things where they've used animatronics to animate the face and the way the body moves. Really great the way they've done that. Just the facial design itself, I'm not a big fan of, particularly when he does go crazy. He doesn't really get the facial expressions that you'd want associated with a murder doll. I much prefer the original design. That's not to say this one's terrible or bad by any means. I just prefer the original. This one works for how the movie is designed, particularly when the eyes, they change from blue to, when he's going evil, red. And that works really well. But I just much prefer the original design. Not to take anything away from this design. The music is great. The new theme from Bear McCreary is amazing. It gives me Danny Elfman vibes, particularly with Batman Returns, when they're out on the streets for Christmas. There's this toy box feel mixed with sinister synths, and it just has a really kind of creepy vibe to it that plays throughout the movie. I love it so much, and it suits the tone of the film. Where this film is going to also divide a lot of people is, I feel like it's not entirely sure if it wants to be a serious movie or if it wants to be a fun, over-the-top comedy. The first half of the movie sets up the creep factor, and the second half of the movie, I feel, goes into more of that silly kind of phase, which is not a bad thing. I just don't think a lot of fans will go in expecting or wanting that. It did feel a little bit restrained and restricted in some of the kills. In particular, it felt like it didn't want to step over that boundary, and it was a bit reserved in some parts. Like, there are a lot of cutaway death scenes, and we saw the aftermath, which was still gory and brutal, but in terms of actually seeing it happen, it used specific camera angles or lighting or cutaway moments that it just felt like they didn't want to go full gore and full horror with it, which kind of held it back. So overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I hope you all do too. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I was thoroughly entertained and laughed a hell of a lot throughout. Most characters were fantastic in their role, and they all played a specific part that made sense to the overall plot. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for me. Let me know your thoughts on the review and the movie down below. Subscribe to the channel, follow our handles at Fortress Nerds. I'm Trent, and you're watching The Fortress.